think about media
Mm,
because as entrepreneurs, you think about advertising, but you
mm,
do not think about media. 80%, 90% of entrepreneurs don't even think about it, and they're not familiar with a ton of opportunities that are even free. I'm talking about earned media that are
mm,
free with a little investment of time, to look to see what, not just putting out press releases, but to look at some of those resources that we talked about that are free, like Arrow and those kind of things, to see
mm,
where media is looking for sources, where you might be a source. And don't be afraid to put, a lot of that's mindset too, is
mm,
people think of the people being quoted or the people on the, on the award stage as somebody else, and they're just, but you're an expert too. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you weren't an
mm.
expert. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that has grown several businesses into 7- and 8-figure companies, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with your patents and trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the episode, Tracy and Lamourie?
Lamourie, yeah.
Lamourie, all right. And so Tracy, to give her a bit of a background, she kind of started off her career learning how to write press releases when she wrote a press release or information for a man on death row in 1999, and kind of then catapulted her career in a bit of being an activist in her 20s and working in a radio show and then also then doing full-time marketing position to kind of do that. The death row case got some national attention, and then she had a light bulb that she didn't want to work for people and do press releases for people she didn't like. So she then went the freelance route and did some profiles and built a client base, opened her own business, and been going ever since. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Tracy.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that was all exactly right, except for the one little correction is I wasn't a publicist when I did that. I learned to write a press release. I was in marketing, and I mean, when I say that, that is sounding more advanced than I was, because I was in my 20s and I was great at communicating, but I was in a low level sales job, selling ISO. So I wasn't doing press releases for a living. I learned to write the press release on the Alta Vista because I was so, impassioned about getting the message out about an innocent man on death row. And the
Mm,
world agreed finally. It was factually innocent. It was all proven. He's been released,
mm.
and that's all. So now the world knows. But that funny little light bulb moment that you mentioned happened about 2 years before that. So by the time he got out, we were able to, greet him. Great, you're out. We had somehow
So before we
finally realized.
let's as we dive into that, because there's a lot of good discussion there. Let's start your journey at that, and then we can talk a little bit. Thank you for the correction, first of all. But so
No,
let's
I don't
say
mean to
so.
be correction. It's just that then people realize, it's kind of empowering because I
Mm.
didn't already have those skills. I learned them on the interwebs, and
Fair
then
enough.
some.
So let's go back to your journey. So you were working in marketing at the time, and it was back in the 90s, if I remember when we discussed.
Mhm.
And so how did you find out about the man on death row? How did you get involved, and what kind of
Yeah,
catapulted that into deciding
a
you wanted to
strange
write
journey.
a press release for him?
So my husband Dave Parkinson and myself at the time, we had when we first met, we had a radio show on 89.5 FM Toronto radio, which was college radio, but it went throughout the whole city. So
Mm,
with the activist heart of kids, we were injustices, reporting on news stories that caught our attention in our 20s. That show was no more because it had stopped a couple years before. But then
mm,
the internet exploded. So now all of a sudden we still feel like we're still used to getting our messaging out. Now we have this new platform. So in those days, you didn't need to have a lot of web skills. You could just type on the Netscape,
mm,
like Facebook now. So we basically were just collecting links and making pages. So I don't know what
mm,
drew us to that page. We certainly had no previous experience with the death penalty, certainly, or crime or murder or anything like that, right? But so I don't know how we found that page. I think just somehow along the deep dive online, looking at injustices, and all of a sudden, oh, look at
mm,
this. Husband found it. It was a page where Jimmy Dennis, who I think, I know, sorry, prisoners were paying to be listed. And most of them were like pen pal requests or whatever, which we never would have found. But he was saying, I'm not looking for a girlfriend. I don't need a pen pal. This I'm putting. This is just literally the only way I have to get on this internet thing. And if somebody could
mm,
hear me, I'm innocent. Someone else. I don't know what drew us. What made us write that letter? I have no idea. I can't get back to that moment now, but we
mm,
did. And he wrote back with 18 pages on both sides with a bunch of legal documentation, enough that even what was happened to be in a cell, even somebody looking at it with no deep dive was like, well, wait a minute, that's not right. If that's true, that's not right. With the
Mm.
documentation, the things the courts were even saying. Over another
So,
year, we ended up,
mm,
doing enough that we could attach our names to us actually, standing beside him, go, yeah, I believe this person is actually factually innocent. And we learned to write the press release, tell the world about it. Ultimately, it was slow going, but we got attention here, attention there, on a worldwide level. Till we developed this team. Somewhere along the line, um, a law firm came in who were
mm,
looking for a case for like unicorns. It doesn't usually happen where they're just looking to go and give free 20 years if we were, but they were like looking for actual factual innocence case to do some pro bono work. And because of the buzz that has started to be created, they started to hear about from people in the know, well, go check out the Jimmy Dennis, go check out the Jimmy Dennis. And they finally ultimately, they were the ones that freed him with the legal work. As you know, as a lawyer, it comes
mm.
down to court. You have to do these things, activism, fine, but you need to be done in court. And he was ultimately freed. 2 years before he was freed, that's when I had my light bulb moment as I'm sitting there just doing my regular marketing thing. So this is 20
Mm,
years into our journey. We've been
mm.
doing this together, advocating for 20 years. We've gotten ourselves on CNN, MSNBC, all these major media talking not just about his case, but about the deep, the death penalty.
So now let me jump in really quick there. So because all this time, in addition to working with him on press releases, trying to get attention, and working towards his innocence, being an activist on his behalf, you're also doing a full time job. I think it was in marketing as well as doing a bit of
Absolutely.
a
Well,
radio show.
the radio show is no more anymore. Both my husband and myself, we didn't have kids yet. We were young. And when everybody else is playing video games or watching TV, we would
Mm,
come home after our full-time jobs. In fact, we had both of us had full-time jobs and part-time jobs 3 days a week in those days.
mm.
So we'd come home whatever leisure time we had, and my husband and I would both sit beside each other, each on a desk, an old desktop, and we would do this work and write this stuff and reach out to people and write all that stuff. So yeah, it was complete advocacy. No one ever got paid for it. No one ever would have thought to. And that work ended up expanding into, we did some deeper talk about the death penalty beyond that case. That ended up again because of our messaging, getting us who were not lawyers, we were not even in America, who had no real experience other than our our opinions and our
Mm.
conversation. I mean, we knew what we were talking about, but I mean, in terms of to hang our hat on, why would you put us on court TV, on MSNBC, on CNN, and all? And we did all that. So it
So
wasn't until 15 years later that I thought, wait a minute, that's some
So
skill.
now let's dive into that a bit. So you've been doing that for quite a long period of time. You're working the full time jobs, working the part time jobs. You're coming home. You're trying to get or continue to get attention, do the activist role, and then along that journey, you then had the light bulb moment. Okay, I don't want to work for people that I don't like working for anymore. That aren't my favorite clients. I want to choose the clients that I enjoy, that I can do the work that I enjoy. And so as you're doing that, how did you make that shift or that transition? Did you quit your job one day and say, "Hey, we're done. We're just going to go do our own thing"? Did you, take it over a period of time? Did you get a side hustle, or kind of once you had that light bulb, how did you make the transition to building your own clients?
Yeah, I guess I was lucky in one way that we had just come back from, we'd left the house behind. We were living in a rental apartment, trying to decide, are we going to go there? Are we going to go there? Where are we going to buy for a while? So it was, really kind of transitioning. And there I was with my desktop computer in the corner doing some work from home. I was privileged to be able to do some work from home, even though I didn't
Mm,
like the job. It wasn't the people, just ISO. It was stuff I didn't care about. And
mm,
so I was, doing basically inside sales at that point for them, but from home, like dealing with their clients and their customers. And so I was able to like transition very quickly. Like it wasn't like I was out of work and then I said, I'm not coming in tomorrow. It's like I had this bunch of work to do and I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do this, finish it out. But the way I remember it is I actually remember not making any more calls after that moment.
mm,
So it's like I think I had the work there, but then I went over because we have the screen in front of us now that gives all of us all these tools and power we didn't have before.
mm,
I and the way I got my first clients before I ever would have thought I couldn't start a company because that wasn't my history. I didn't know about starting companies and I wasn't in my comfort zone. I just
mm,
knew how to get the work, right? So I went to there was freelance sites, Elance or Upwork, I think it's called now. I haven't used it in years, but where you could put up your best. I always, like I said to you, life's a pitch with a P, not a B, right? You can
mm,
put up your best pitch, explain who you are, what you can do, then hopefully somebody is going to give you a chance, right? And
Mm,
through because of the power of online, there was these I guess essentially networking tools that
mm,
allowed me to meet the people that would hire. I was able to convince the first few people, hire me. Here I am at home. I'm going to do this for you. And then so I really quickly was able, and people can too, by being smart and finding out what resources are available, transition, almost in a weekly base, almost like instantly
mm.
from getting that income to finding a little side. And I guess it was a side at first when I first used it. Um,
So, and that's what I was going to ask is, so when you're doing now, you're doing freelancer work, you're kind of doing that on the side, you're trying to build a bit of a client base, build a profile, get the reviews and whatnot. Were you still working a full-time job at that point, or did you just said, hey, I'm going to go
No, because
freelance or go
no,
all in?
not at all. Because I had been doing it. It just literally, I don't remember making any calls after that. I was working full time, doing outgoing, and I had to work at my desk. And because
Mm,
I was doing it from home, right? So I'm there. I'm not like physically having to. It's just it was probably a structure where I had to do so much work that week, not day by day, So I
mm,
had to. So instead, I just started. I just changed my focus. Literally, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. It was literally that. That's why I say light bulb moment. It wasn't a transit. It was literally like, huh, wait a
mm,
minute. Whoa, wait a minute. It's like when it hit me that those were actually marketable. It sounds crazy, right? But because for years and years, I've been writing press releases, going on TV, getting these, but I was for active. I thought of myself as an advocate, as an activist, not
mm,
as someone, you know, so it was our messaging. I never thought about it as, oh, wait a minute, I could be hired to create messaging for people.
mm,
And then once that moment happened, I had every confidence in the world that I could do it because I had been doing it for 15 years,
mm,
right? I can say, look, even they don't, whether I've been paid for it or not, I got us on CNN, MSNBC, all those things. Want me to do that for you? So I only
mm,
had to convince one person to
mm.
take a chance on me. And that's true probably for every entrepreneur. Not that dramatic story, but whatever your skill is, whatever your thing is, you really need to convince yourself first that you're that you can do that.
Mm.
And, and and then one person that you can do it. And then do that and then get that client and you start to build that reputation.
So now let me or follow up. So I mean, so you went out and did a freelance. You said, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to build my freelancer reputation. Going to build a profile. Going to do everything I need to really get the work to come in. Before or how long? And because some of those platforms, when I've looked at, you kind of have it's ones where at least when you start out, you're having to do it as a cut rate, or you're going to have to be, very competitive on price to try and get that reputation, to get that reviews, and to be able to warrant a larger price. So, how long was it as you're going along that road, or that journey, before you were able to, demand the higher price, or in other words, you were able to build enough of a client base or reputation?
I think a lot of that is mindset because what I've learned, I could have done that way earlier. I had
Hmm.
built enough of a reputation and the skill to do way to increase my price, not just on those because I left those sites very quickly, and I never
Hmm.
went super low. I always had enough respect for my work that I said, "Here's what I can do." I didn't go bottom barrel. I
Hmm.
went like in the you know what I mean. Then I got one or two, and then more. But
Hmm.
then I left those aside very quickly because once I just started, using the social media, using
Hmm.
LinkedIn effectively. Once I had done a couple projects, I could point to some press releases.
Hmm.
And then, but your question's a really good one, and I find it because even today, and I talk about that when I do podcasts, is how we price ourselves as entrepreneurs. I find is, a huge thing for a lot of us, and we have
Hmm.
that fear. I'm over that now. I mean, now I got a resume this long, and I could go and it's true. I could go and only get the Hollywood projects, or only get almost anybody who looks at my resume now. If they're interested in PR, I'm in the running. So I don't have to
Hmm.
compete the way I used to, but
Hmm.
still we all have that. We still, so I'm learning not to now, but it took a long, long transition of my business consultant pounding me over the head, telling me I'm ridiculous because, like, look at that I wasn't, I'm not operating like a seat. I
Hmm.
felt like, owner of a company that's there to make money. I'm a sucker for this story of, oh, I have a great message, but maybe all you have to do is be like, oh, well, and then I'm like, I used to be like, oh, I can give you a three. So I'm like giving you budgets, giving you deals before because I was stuck in that activist mode. But now this
Hmm.
is a service I'm providing, and I had to
So
learn
So now
price it.
let follow up. So now you do that for a period of time. You say, okay, I'm not going to be cut rate, or I'm not going to go to or race to the bottom, and I'm going to be still competitive on pricing. And then you build it, and to the point that now you have a client base, a clientele. You don't have to, people are almost coming to you. You have that reputation and get referrals. So as you're building that now, if you're to take kind of taking that to where you're at today, where do you see, what are you doing today, and where do you see the next, 6 to 12 months taking you?
So all my business, all right, 80% of my business now for real, if not more, is repeat clients and referrals. So part of it,
Mm,
I know what I'm going to be doing in the next year, who I'm going to be working with. But then all of that business always just piles on. I never know who's going to come to me, who's going to come to me. And I still find interesting projects on LinkedIn. All of a sudden, for example, I found an interesting project on LinkedIn in October, just connected with another car lady. Turns out she's
mm,
got 3 TV shows in 8 different cities in or countries in the continent in Africa. She's coming over here to do an international version of one of them Shiros. All of a
mm,
sudden now I'm placing all my clients in it, and then she asked me to be the executive producer. So that came out of nowhere through a 1 minute LinkedIn conversation. Now I'm executive producing, a
mm,
series focusing on amazing women around the world as well as the PR stuff. So who knows what could develop as a result of that? And that's going to take me. Once the world opens up, apparently I'm going to go to Ghana with that project. And I had another project, film Secret of Svalbard, sorry, television series, a Canadian, US, Canadian UK co-production that's in
mm,
development. So there's all this stuff, and these literally happen like on a dime. So just fascinating, interesting, usually international projects that cause me to be able to travel and leave,
mm,
Hamilton Mountain and go more exciting places. Though I don't know right now with all these lockdown and things where I'll physically be, but
mm.
even while we've been in all lockdown, I've been all over the world and panels and podcasts and meeting interesting people, and so who
So
knows.
now going to kind of taking this next 6 to 12 months, it sounds like the plan and projection is you're going to continue to go on the road of building, getting reputations, working for clients, and just kind of overall expanding the business. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and also a big thing, a big goal for this year that we just incorporated. So we're still getting our heads around the difference between being a partnership and an incorporation and all the new reporting and
Mm,
all that stuff, right? Which for a non-business minded person is good. But the next goal, I would like to become more a job creator because I've no problem getting contracts. I could get
mm,
10 more contracts tomorrow. I could get
mm,
20 contracts tomorrow. No word of a lie. That's not hard. The world is my way. Like it's the whole world that I can work in. That's English speaking.
mm,
It's and across industries. But then I can only take on right now as much as the two of us that are here can work. And that
mm,
whole hiring people is a whole other thing. I really want to do it, but that's a whole other education for me. And you
mm,
know, and so that I hope to go there. I really hope to become a not just one or two people, but I would love to be able to get an understanding in my head about how to do that, so that I
mm.
can expand and really, share the wealth, share the job. People need work. This is good work, and there's a lot of it available.
Well, I think that's awesome, and sounds like a fun trajectory. And right now, it sounds like it'll be fun for you and your husband. Continue to grow it, continue to bring on clients that you like, and then maybe sometime down the road is to bring on some employees. But that's a whole nother thing to tackle and a whole nother lesson to learn.
Yeah.
So,
So
well,
I hear.
as we start to wrap up the podcast, and I always ask two questions at the end of each podcast, so we'll jump to those now. First question I always ask is: so along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Um, Taking people at face value, I guess, I'm not stupid, but a lot of times, I'm honest, and a lot of people show me that there's some great thing, and I mean, about themselves, I feel like I know them and I like them, and
Mm,
sometimes people have mental health issues or other agendas or something comes out later, I don't know, that you didn't realize, and then
mm,
especially when you're working with them and representing them, that could become problematic. So
mm,
want to make sure you're not taking on any, hunt contacts with people that you don't 100% know where they're going, where they stand, that you're in alignment with them, that you can
mm,
ethically continue to represent them, feeling good about yourself and ethically serving your client because you believe in what they're saying. So
mm,
what I learned is I'm not quite sure how to, make sure that that never happens again. But I learned
mm,
to be definitely more thinking about that, more cautious. And I always was in terms of, are we aligned? Because I would never
mm,
work for something I wasn't aligned with. But sometimes you may think you are because you're looking at one aspect, but you don't necessarily see the whole picture. And then once you do more due diligence, something might have popped up that showed you, ooh,
mm.
they may be problematic to work with, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, and part of the, it's always as an entrepreneur, in the one sense, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs are very savvy and they understand, they make good business decisions. And yet, a lot of times, and I myself included, I would always think, hey, everybody will work as hard as I will. They will be as honest as I will. They'll be as vested and everything else. And the honest truth is, very seldom is that the case, in the sense that nobody's invested in your business. No one's going to work as hard to make and take care of it because it's not theirs. And so I think, learning who to trust and how to trust and how to, delegate that trust is always a learning curve, and one that is often made along the way. So now the second question I always ask is, so if you're talking now to someone that's just getting into a startup or small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I always say, think about media,
Mm,
because as entrepreneurs, you think about advertising, but you
mm,
do not think about media. 80%, 90% of entrepreneurs don't even think about it, and they're not familiar with a ton of opportunities that are even free. I'm talking about earned media that are
mm,
free with a little investment of time, to look to see what, not just putting out press releases, but to look at some of those resources that we talked about that are free, like Arrow and those kind of things, to see
mm,
where media is looking for sources, where you might be a source. And don't be afraid to put, a lot of that's mindset too, is
mm,
people think of the people being quoted or the people on the, on the award stage as somebody else, and they're just, but that you're an expert too. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you weren't an
mm.
expert. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
No, I think that's great advice. And, both take advantage of free resources, put yourself out there, explore what options are, what possibilities, and rather than pigeonhole as to you got to do it one way or you're thinking of it one way. I like that advice as well. Well, as we wrap up and people they want to find out more about you, they want to use your, PR or publishing or publishing services. They want to find out more about, what other service you offer. They want to be an employee. They want to be an investor. They want to be your next best friend. Any or all of the above. What's the
Want to hang
best
out?
way to What's the
Yeah.
best way to connect or connect up to you or find out more?
So I live on Facebook, the Tracy Lamourie. If you have my spelling of my name right there, they can find me. I'm the only one.
Mm,
On Instagram, Tracy Lamourie, PR Media. LamourieMedia.com is my website, under development still, but it's up there right now. You can see it.
mm,
And what else? LamouriePR@gmail.com. And I'm happy to do a 20-minute and half-hour free consult. If anyone heard all this, it's like, yeah, media, but I bet you couldn't get me in. I'm happy to talk to you about, you specifically, what you do, what we would do to get you in media, the
all
listener,
right.
if they're interested. So
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, find out more, and make sure to support you in all that you do. So, well, as we
thank you
wrap
so
up,
much.
thank you for being on. Now, if you're a listener and you have your own journey to tell, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the podcast. If you're a listener, also make sure to click subscribe so you get notifications all the episodes come out, and leave us a review if you can. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Thank you again, Tracy, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much. Bye.